Hey folks, my name is Kevin and it's time for a little bit more knife nerdery, and today we're unboxing a knife that I sure as heck made it to me in better shape than the box is coming in. That's no fault of the guy who I bought it off of. This is a knife from Justin Lundquist. So let's use another knife from Justin Lundquist to open this up. This is the Wee Eidolon. And Justin Lundquist is one of those designers who, kind of like Ray Laconico, has a really iconic, recognizable style that is defined by clean lines and a lot of symmetry. And another way of describing him is kind of like Ray Laconico. He's one of those knife makers that just kind of keeps making the same knife over and over again. But lucky for me, I love his style. And so the fact that he keeps on making relatively subtle iterations on the same general style means that there's a lot of variants of knives that I really, really like. And if you don't like one certain aspect, like if you don't like how incredibly pointy this one is, and you want this in something that's more of like a reverse tanto, you can get something like this. So let's take a look and look what's inside here. Okay. Well, it is not perfect. It did get kind of smoosh. That sucks. But again, no fault of the guy I bought this off of. He tried holding it backwards. It doesn't work. So this is a Kizer knife, and Kizer is known for making these really pretty, over-the-top, elaborate presentations where there's just too much going on here. Like there's this outer box that's got the whole thing, and then there's these like lions there, and this opens up like some kind of dual-walled coffin. Yeah, and then there's this whole thing, and then there's this whole thing. But you know what? More power to them. It seems like a lot of packaging, but I like a good presentation. That's interesting. It has an extra set of screws and pivot. I wonder if that is something it always comes with or not. By the way, I should have said this already. This is the Kizer de L'Orme. De L'Orme is a French surname, and there's been plenty of people that have had that name, but the most famous is probably Philibert de L'Orme, a Renaissance architect, and Justin Lundquist has a fine arts degree, and so it's entirely plausible that that's where this name is coming from, and especially because he tends to make knives that are on the like kind of architectural looking side with their clean lines and everything like that. And yep. Yeah, it's a pretty similar knife. Yeah, it's a pretty similar knife. So I didn't know this knife existed until Kevin, aka Left EDC, saw that I had this one, and he was like, "Oh, I'm assuming you also have this one because I know you like reverse tantos and sheep's twists and everything like that." Because, yep. And so, yeah, you can kind of get the same general knife in a reverse tanto, and look at that. Okay, so this is 0.12 blade stock, so it's thin. It's not crazy thin, but it's nice and thin. It's a really pretty short grind though, so I'm guessing this is not the thinnest behind the edge thing ever, but that's one of the things that Kevin said he really liked about it. Look at that. That is crazy. This is a actually true guillotine knife. Does this have any blade play? Nope. Nope. This is a knife that is completely feels rock solid, and yet just completely free falls. And the thing that makes that kind of noteworthy is that this is not a terribly expensive knife. This is it's over $100, but I think it's like 120 maybe. And so it's not super duper common to find knives in the $120 range that do that. One thing I'm noticing, yeah, you can really hear those bearings. I think you're also hearing, I'm not sure. This is just a very kind of like mechanical, rattly sounding knife. You come over here and, for example, like this will easily free fall to my nail. Well, if I can get my finger in there. But this is so much tighter, and this is certainly not going to fall closed. But if you move this, There's none of that kind of rattly sound. So one of the things I'm going to look at is to see whether or not maybe I want to replace the bearings in this. I'm guessing they're not anything super special. 20 CV in a knife that is completely free fall. Yeah, 120 bucks. That's crazy. So they both have this exact same kind of flipper tab top. And what this is a top flipper that relies entirely on traction. And so there's no like real lever arm. This is the kind of knife that if you hand this to someone that doesn't understand top flippers, they literally won't know how to open this at all. There's no place you can grab this from because the knife blade itself is completely submerged. And so what you have to do is just kind of place your thumb down on the top of this so you have traction, and then just kind of pull off to the side like that. And I do find that the version on this Eidolon is one of the like easier to do. You'll find this on other knives too. Let me get one out real quick. Like this is the oh gosh, what is this thing called? I'm totally blanking on the name of this, but it's a Ferrum Forge design and it's a double detent from Civivi. I'm blanking on the name of this, but it's got the same general concept. Now, obviously it's off center, but this is the kind of thing where you use traction alone to push this over. And I just don't think that this is anywhere near as easy to do as this one. And I'm not really sure why. This one's just really smooth. It's got nicer, crisper lines. This is just super duper easy. And so I do see right off the bat that this one's a little bit less easy. But not really. Part of what's going on is that it sticks up a little bit more. Like this is protruding further. And so I'm noticing on this one, I'm just pressing straight down and pulling. And on this one, I'm finding that I'm trying to push my finger off to the side and use this as a lever arm. And I probably should just push down and pull over. Nope. That is just sliding when I do that. Yeah, I kind of have to. I'm going to have to figure out what exactly is going on that makes this one less easy for me. Because it looks just as crisp of jimping. I don't know. This kind of lines going on right here is a signature design feature of Justin Lundquist. And you'll see that he does that exact same thing on a couple of other knives, including the Urban EDC Supply collab that he did called the Baby Barlow that's coming out. And that is also a reverse tanto knife. And so to me, this is kind of a larger version of that, a much longer, thinner version. Stylistically, they have other things in common too as well. A Barlow shaped blade is one that has symmetric lines that kind of expand as they come out. I said blade, but I'm talking about the handle. And so this is much more geometric. Those are typically rounded off, but this is kind of loosely a Barlow shaped handle. I don't personally understand why this is here. Why? I would do without this. This fuller here isn't, it's not in any way accessible, so you can't use it for any kind of grip to make this a two-hand opening knife. And so it's not going to do anything for you other than collect crud. So I would definitely remove that. The swedge is thinning out this edge a little bit at the end. It's not actually dropping below the grind line, so you can tell that it's not going to make the blade any thinner. This is the entire full thickness of the blade, that 0.12 this entire way, but it is going to reduce drag if you're cutting along the top up there. But honestly, I think it's going to be mostly aesthetic. You can see that this is just a flat grind. It's not hollowed out. And so since this is such a short grind, I think I would rather this be hollowed out for this to be slicier. My gut says that this isn't going to be the sliciest knife ever. And you compare this again, this is a hollow grind, and this is like insanely thin slicey. So I'm guessing this is not going to be my favorite cutter, but I think it's going to be the kind of knife where I'm not going to care that it's not a hollow grind, because if you think about what you do with a reverse tanto, especially one that's in this size, is you hold it like this and you use it for utility cuts. In which case you're only really using this portion of the blade to begin with, and you're just using the tip. And it's like, yeah, if you push this through cardboard, it might not slice as well as some things, but is it going to matter? I mean, are you ever going to push this through cardboard? I kind of anticipate no. One thing that this knife is doing better than this one is lock bar access. When I was trying to show you that this one can drop to my nail, it's hard for me to get it to drop to my nail, not because it won't, but because it's not the easiest thing in the world to get my finger in here and to push this over completely flush. Part of what's going on there is that this one has a exposed lock bar the entire way. Now that's because this is a freaking integral, and so for them to make this an inset lock bar would be just even more insanely complicated, but it does mean that there's like the ability to accidentally pinch yourself or wedge your finger in there. And since there's not any kind of recession right here, there's just this scallop. It means that getting in here and pressing completely over so that it will just fall to your nail is kind of hard to do. And on this, they have the scallop, but they've actually added in this. And that's a concession that I'm actually a little bit surprised to see, because a lot of Lundquist's knives have just that clean, perfect symmetry. And so it's cool to see them add in this little divot. Even though it breaks up the symmetry, it makes it functionally a lot easier to push this over. Part of the reason why they're able to get this like actual free fall guillotining action is because this is a very light lock bar. And that's honestly what you need on a knife that has this type of deployment. You'll find the exact same thing over here. This is also a very light lock bar. And the reason for that is because you need to have a light detent. You have such small... You don't have a full flipper tab, you don't have something that you can push and apply actual real leverage on, so you need something that is light. So the question is then, is this light enough? No, that's still in there firm enough that I don't think this is gonna... No, I can't make it go. Does it rattle at all? Nope. No, that's all good. Yeah, so it's not light enough that's going to fall out, but it is light enough that you can still push it out. That actually flips, the more I'm getting used to it, the more that I find that that flips really, really well. I don't think that this jimping is doing anything at all. It's funny because it's actually pretty similar jimping to what you find over here. This is relatively uncommon jimping as jimping goes. It's much more common to find jimping that is fully serrated down in, but this type of jimping is, let's see if I can get that to focus. I'm going to try and zoom in. This kind of jimping is only on the side, so it's cut in at an angle. And I like this a whole heck of a lot better if you're going to put it on a lock bar. I don't personally think jimping belongs on a lock bar, period, because jimping provides traction as you move across it, and lock bar pressure is moving move along it, and lock bar pressure is moving across it. But whatever, it kind of helps lock your finger in. But the benefit of this style of at an angle jimping is that you don't have that problem of pushing in it being uncomfortable, because this is actually a solid surface at the top. It's kind of rare to find this, so it's pretty cool to see that they're doing it over here too. And I'm guessing that means that Justin Lundquist requested that, because yeah, I don't really see that on a bunch of different knives. And the fact that I see it on 2 knives that he designed means that, yeah, it's not something unique to him. In fact, this style of jimping here, I'm going to leave this zoomed in for just a moment. You also find it on this. This is by this is by Civivi, same company. You see it there on the Baby Banter. So the same concept where it's coming in at the side. So it's not like unique to this knife, but it's really cool to see, and I like it a lot better. The one thing I will say is that there's a really big difference in the finishing between these two. This is kind of crisp, and so it actually does kind of catch my finger, and this is a lot more rounded off. See how I can easily run my finger over this and it's not catching on my nail? So I honestly don't think this jimping is helping at all, like literally at all. Yeah, I'm still sliding along it, but it's not problematic. And so since I find that jimping is usually, for me, just a problem, I'm happy to see that if it's going to be there, that it's not getting in the way. Are there other things I want to talk about this? Oh yeah, the pocket clip. So one of the things that Justin Lundquist did on both the Eidolon from WE and the Urban EDC Supply Baby Barlow, which I am guessing is OEM'd by WE, even though they don't say, is he has this deep carry pocket clip that is really freaking cool, because this is a machined, like a milled tie deep carry pocket clip, and it's not as cool as the one on, for example, this is the Quiet Carry Drift, and I made such a big deal about this pocket clip because it's a milled tie deep carry clip, but it's giving you the benefit of the milled where it gives you this flat part here. And this is so much more complicated to do because it means that you have to mill it in an additional axis, but you get that benefit of this being flat the entire way. And so when you hold it in your hand, you don't feel anything. This is a milled tie deep carry clip, but it's done, I suspect, along one singular axis, and then they bend it afterward. And so it's still really freaking cool. I'm so excited to see this clip and clips like this coming into production finally for the first time literally ever, because you get something that's aesthetically really, really pleasing, and you get a deep carry clip, but you don't get that entirely flat surface. And so this is a little bit pointy, but he did that on both of those knives. So I'm not entirely surprised to not see it over here, because this is a much more complicated way of making a clip, and it's thus on a more expensive knife. But I am a little bit disappointed not to see it over here. But you know what? This is actually a really nice looking clip. It's not deep carry. That's its only real problem. But you know, it's not that deep. It's not that shallow. It's like probably on par with the average knife that's not deep carry. And the look of it is really nice. Feels like it's going to have good spring tension. And yeah, and it's geometric in a way that I think works really nice. The curve on this actually kind of works nicely with the curves in here, but the fact that this is a completely straight looking thing, this isn't actually straight. You can see that this is contoured along this entire dimension, but this being plain without any kind of swoop in it actually matches this much, much nicer. Love the fact that there's the pivot collars, love those inserts. Got just kind of a single barrel spacer back here. This is a really, really minimal construction. Wow, yeah, that's the entire point of contact, is these two things right there. Wow, talk about minimal. This is really freaking cool. I am digging this. This is a very, very me knife. There are a few things, like I said, that I would change immediately. I would change that. I would get rid of this chimping that doesn't need to be there. And I would make this either thinner blade stock or a hollow grind, or I would actually, my ideal was they would just extend this all the way to the top and make the grind be a full grind, even if it was just still a flat grind. But for the type of stuff that I would use this for, yeah, it feels great. And it's got a really nice stone wash, and it's just a completely free fall knife in a way that's just, yeah, this is really freaking awesome. So if you like Justin Lundquist's minimal designs, and if you want something that has maybe a little bit more angularity to it, just because sometimes you like pokey bits, well, this has that in spades, and they're not pokey in a negative way. They're just, you know, they're not all swoop. And this one's all swoop. I think this is freaking awesome. So yeah, Kevin, thank you for letting me know this exists. I will do a follow-up at some point, I'm sure, and talk about why I think I'm getting this kind of really mechanical, loose bearing feeling sound. And it might just be that I need to swap out the bearings for something else, or maybe it's just so dry, because a lot of times when you hear a really kind of mechanical ratchety sound on bearings, they're just incredibly dry. But I don't think this needs any lube from like an action perspective, because look at that. Wow, just insane. Okay, I think that's going to be it for this. I don't know what else I would say other than that there's steel liners that are skeletonized, so this is actually still pretty light. In fact, it's very, very light. In fact, it's tremendously light. So yeah, maybe this will get a full review. Maybe it won't. Maybe that's the entirety. Oh, I finally tried that. But this is a tremendous mean knife. Thank you, Kev, for letting me know this exists. And thank you, Justin, for continuing to make knives that I really, really love. Okay, catch you guys next time.